or has post-combine your quarterback decision for the Commanders changed at all? Have you changed your mind based off of the workouts? Maybe you saw J.J. McCarthy throw, and you're like, actually, I'm in on that kid. Trade down. Let's go get him. Are you concerned about something you heard in one of the interviews? Are you – all of those things. That's the question. 301-230-0980. Anthony, do you, amidst your flashing light there, you can just turn the light off. It's bright enough in the studio today. Let's let it charge up, and then we can get you all your face all lit up pretty later in the show. Are you based off all the stuff that, like, the interviews that you listened to that I did last week, to anything else that you've heard or read, how are you feeling about where the Commanders are at with that number 2 pick? Has your desires, free agency, draft, which quarterback changed at all?
I wouldn't necessarily say my opinion has changed. I'm still, in on Jayden Daniels. But, looking at NFL, the NFL Combine this weekend and just paying a lot of attention to NFL Network, I forgot who mentioned it, but if you look at Jayden Daniels, college career, he's really only had one high-level season of, play. And, we always talk about Joe Burrow's his senior year, where he had a breakout year at LSU and went on to, win the championship later that season. But then you also look at a guy like a Kenny Pickett, where he also did not have a stellar college career, but his senior season, he lit it up, got all ACC and things of that nature, and that more so was just the lone outlier season for Kenny Pickett while he was in college. So it's a lot of things that, got me questioning whether or not Jayden Daniels is going to be, like a Joe Burrow or a Kenny Pickett. But I still seem to lean towards him. I was impressed with Drake Maye over the weekend. I think he did a great job with the interviews. He also, I think he did a great job with the interviews. But so I'm a little torn still between those two, but I'm still leaning towards Jayden Daniels a little bit. But they give me a reason to pause and try to evaluate it a little bit more and just consider the pros and cons of this guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that, and apologies to those on the YouTube stream. I know my mic volume is really low. Anthony, does my mic sound okay on the radio?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think a wire got crossed, and I can't fix it until we go to commercial break. But I just want to make sure that it sounded good to the vast people listening throughout the DMV driving around. So I think I went into the combine knowing that a lot of people were going to convince me or try to convince me that Drake Maye is better than Jayden Daniels, and very open to that idea because I think this is the time of year where you have to be open-minded, where you have to just admit, we don't have all of the information. And I think specifically some of the things I was told, and as I've gone back and started to watch a little bit more, I more get the Drake Maye thing now. And, I think I've shifted in that direction. I also think that the trade, I am also, will fully admit, I am more open to trading down and drafting McCarthy than I think a lot of people are. And I understand that that's an unpopular opinion, and I understand the drawbacks. I just think that the capital that you could get is really hard to pass up. When we were talking to Q from Raider Nation Radio, and he's like, you can have 3 firsts and Hunter Renfrow. And I'm like, okay. J.J. McCarthy, Terry McLaurin, Hunter Renfrow, and Jahan Dotson, and future firsts. That's hella appealing. But at the same time, I also understand that if Drake Maye is actually as good as Nate Tice thinks he is, where he's got him as one of the best prospects he's evaluated in the last 10 years, and he pans out here, that passing up J.J. McCarthy, or passing up on Maye for McCarthy and others, or taking Daniels, is a huge mistake. So I think that's probably where I sit right now, is that I'm starting to lean more towards Maye. That's probably my number one choice. I still like Daniels. I actually like all of their options. I think that's, which is not, it doesn't make for great radio because you want a strong opinion and then people get super mad about it. But I actually genuinely do like all their options. And I think something that I definitely want to talk about later with Linnell when he's in for Overreaction Tuesday is that in part because we just trust the decision makers in charge now more than we have in the last 25 years of Washington football. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We'll take your calls on this next. Has your opinion changed on what you think Washington should do at the number 2 pick, and really more so with the quarterback position going into 2024? 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show, and we're taking your calls on a Vibe Check Tuesday next. Let's not forget the veteran quarterback options. It's been interesting reading the YouTube comments the last couple of days because, or especially in the last 24 hours since Michael Phillips was on the show, because you have some people being like, hell no to Russell Wilson, while other people agree with Phillips that, like, hey, if he's going to be here for $1 million, like, cool, let's do that. How do we get that set up going? So I think that is also something that is worth poking around at. Are you now more open to Kirk Cousins or, re-signing Jacoby Brissett as maybe having him as your primary starter and attacking quarterback late in the draft because you like a Spencer Rattler or whatever? Like, I think those are options that we should also put on the table for people. And that's really kind of what I'm checking in on. The reason we do Vibe Check Tuesday is because I want to see where y'all are at as a fan base. And obviously, you're certainly not a homogenous collective. You all have different thoughts, but at 301-230-0980, like what do you want to see out of the Commanders at quarterback at 2024 or in 2024 post combine? That is the question. So let's go to the phones, 301-230-0980. And let's get things started with Billy in Miami. Billy, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hi, Craig. I am calling in as I'm walking home, so I'm a little bit winded from my country club. And I have 2 things that I picked up this weekend. First is, right now, listening to Kevin's show and your show, I feel like I'm listening to CNN and Fox because the opinions are so different. Kevin's team is so pro Jayden Daniels, and all his guests are pro Jayden Daniels. And they're all actually speaking this morning. They spoke about Drake Maye not even being a first-round pick. Then yesterday I heard a wonderful podcast on your show from Logan about all the qualities of Drake Maye, and it really got me excited. Very open-minded to both of them. I think Jayden has an incredible temperament. I like his mindset. I'm just a little worried about – it reminds me of RG3 in terms of possibly getting hurt. I just wanted to bring up that, it is funny to hear the differences in your shows. Second thing I just picked up today is I'm bringing in a veteran. I've often seen, like with the Green Bay Packers, they've been so consistent in their quarterbacks. And I don't want to bring in a veteran versus picking up a new quarterback. I would love to bring in a veteran who has established record of winning, leadership. The new quarterback can learn underneath. That's why possibly the whole idea of Russell Wilson coming in for a year, even if he's not playing, but sort of like what's his name, the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, even as a hurt Aaron Rodgers was doing, kind of giving leadership and explaining how things should be done, and creates great value. Those are my 2 items. Yeah,
no, Billy, thanks for the call. Very much appreciate it. So I think that there's some interesting meat on the bone on both of those points. Both in things that I think are valid and in things that I think are potential red flags, I'll call them. So thing one, yes, opinions are tremendously varied on Daniels versus Maye. And we had it last week. I've said this line before, so if you listen to the show all day, every day, or listen to all 3 hours every day, apologize that you'll hear it again, but I know a lot of you are tuning in and out as you drive around. That's what it is. But last week I taped some of the stuff that we were doing in Indianapolis. So at 2:30 p.m., Trevor Sikkema sat down 3 feet from me on Radio Row, and we had a great conversation about the quarterbacks. And he said almost verbatim, when you watch the tape, it's not a question, Drake Maye's the better player. And in his mind, when Trevor watches the tape, this is Pro Football Focus's lead draft analyst. This is his job all year long. He goes, it's not close. In fact, I would put McCarthy closer to Daniels than I would Daniels to Maye. It's like, damn, that seems pretty definitive. How could someone argue with that? And then Lance Zierlein comes along at 3. We taped with Lance at 3:25. So that's what, 55 minutes later? Less than 30 minutes than when I was done with Trevor, because Trevor and I talked for 20 minutes, right? Trevor gets up, 30-ish minutes later, Lance sits down, same chair. And I was like, so you have Jayden Daniels going to Washington. Are you is that because you like the fit, or are you a Jayden guy or a Drake guy? He's like, no, I'm a Jayden guy. He's like, I don't think Drake's, like, I barely have him as a first rounder, I think is what he said. He's like, when you watch the tape, it's clear he's the better player. These are two guys who do this year round, who watch all 22. Like, Pro Football Focus has access to tape that I'm just now getting my hands on. I actually watched NC State UNC all 22, every throw that Drake had, every drop back that Drake had this afternoon. Very interesting tape. My main takeaway, Anthony, from the NC State North Carolina game last year, North Carolina is a bad football team, bro. Their offensive line, not good. Their receivers, not good. Their running backs, their running game, I should say, not good. Because it was a good all 22 where it actually had like the down and distances between the plays. And like there was a bunch of plays where I'm just like, wow, it was 2nd and 6. Now it's 3rd and 12. And it wasn't a drop back because they didn't show me. So that means they ran for -6 yards. Cool. So, these two guys that are watching it, and they literally see different things because the way either their understanding of the concepts and what Drake is supposed to do and Jayden's supposed to do, or the, like, kind of what they value is totally different. And I'll give you a great example. There's actually a play that I also watched a little. It was Chase Daniel, the former NFL quarterback, and now is doing a YouTube thing, and he did a film breakdown of Jayden Daniels versus Florida, which is an all-time game, like one of the best college quarterback games of the last 10 years. Jayden absolutely destroyed Florida, like, single-handedly, right? And then one of his big plays in that game is a play where it's total beauty in the eye of the beholder. It is an out and or I think it was a comeback and an out. So CO concept, as some people call it, on one side. There's different names for it, but it was a high-low read on the left side, which was the boundary side. So the shorter side of the field. And then on the right, there was kind of what we call like a through route, or it's not really an over, but just it's like a go, but make it crooked, make it a slant, or make it slanted. And so that clearing route where if you get an alert man-to-man coverage and your guy gets beat and there's no safety help, like you got this big old window to throw it, but otherwise it's mostly a clearing route. And then the fourth route in the progression is a backside dig, which you can get through that progression really quickly where that backside dig is live. There's also times where you might skip that backside dig against certain coverages and immediately check it down to the back. And that's what Jayden does on this play, is he decides that he's going to try to check down to the back early. Back's kind of covered by a flat player. He takes off and runs. Now he goes and runs for like 30 yards on this play. Absolutely unbelievable run where you're going, what could you possibly have to say about that? That is a phenomenal play. Well, as a quarterback evaluator, you have to decide, do I like the fact that he ran, or do I hate the fact that he missed the backside dig? Because that backside dig is an NFL throw. The ability to hit that is super valuable to a lot of NFL offenses and a lot of NFL coaches. Now, if you're going to miss the backside dig and you gain 30 yards every time, great, but you're not going to gain 30 yards every time. And do you take a hit at the end? What kind of exposure are you putting yourself to? Where if you just hit the dig, you get almost the same 30 yards. It would have been a 22-yard gain in timing, in rhythm. Left side's dead. Through route's not there. Bang, hit that dig. Hit that deep in-cutting route. That is an NFL throw. And Jayden Daniels turning some of those down in favor of running, even if the run is why this stuff is so complicated. And I think when you watch, like, for instance, the Drake Maye All-22 that I watched today, it was one game, and your biggest takeaway is his team sucks, then, like, what do you do? And I was texting with Nate about it afterward, Tice, who's, big Drake Maye guy. And I was like, that game was brutal to watch. That game reminded me why I don't watch college football. And I was watching the All-22 where I could watch every throw in about 17 minutes, and those are 17 minutes I watch back. Want back. But in that game, like Drake Maye, I think winds up statistically 1 touchdown, 2 picks. It should have been 3 touchdowns, no picks. He has a touchdown that gets dropped. He has 2 other picks in that game where he hits the receiver in the hands, the ball pops up in the air, and it gets picked off. So if all you do is look at stats and all you do is look at box scores, you're not actually going to get a pretty good evaluation. Now, does that mean that Drake Maye should have won the Heisman Trophy? Hell no. It's not about results in college. This is about who he's going to be in the NFL. And that's why it's hard. Because there's a lot of stuff. I still, watching that Florida tape of Jayden today, I was like, damn, he's on rhythm a lot. Damn, I like the pace that he plays at. But it's not Drake's fault his offensive line stinks. So that's the question. 301-230-0980. We got a couple of calls lined up. We'll start buzzing through them next here on a Vibe Check Tuesday on The Hoffman Show. Let's get to the phones. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. 301-230-0980. Let's get started with Andre in Manassas. Andre, thanks for calling. You're on The Hoffman Show.
Hey, Hoff. So, I'm thinking about this whole quarterback situation, and I think the NFL has it all wrong. I think this is when the NFL needs to probably borrow a page from MLB or the NBA, because I would argue 100% of quarterbacks drafted should all sit a year. And it's not like it's a brand new thing. Look at Green Bay. Green Bay has done this for so many decades now, and it's paid off. So I would probably, and I know the team is going to draft the quarterback and wants them to play now, but everybody needs to sit. I think I was listening to Logan Paulson, and he wasn't a big fan of, he liked all these guys, but I think every person I've listened to all said all these quarterbacks should probably sit a year. They should benefit, and they'll be better off. So, to that point, yeah, I would. If Russell Wilson, like to all reports, is dirt cheap, I would sign him for at least a year and let my quarterback sit. What would it hurt for us to sign whoever we select? If it's Drake Maye, your boy in LSU or USC, just draft them and let them sit, because none of these guys, I can see all 3 of these quarterbacks failing simply because every single franchise they went to wanted to start them immediately, and I don't think any of these guys are ready to go. Having said all that. If I had my druthers, I guess I would go with LSU. I think he needs to sit, put some weight on. I would go with getting Russell Wilson, only simply because he's dirt cheap. And kind of, let the chips fall while they may. But I just don't understand why the NFL, from a theory standpoint, how they've determined the best way to build a team is to get some dude from college who's like 19, 20, 21 and say, you're the leader of my franchise, when MLB, unless you're, truly a generational talent, and that's where, for some reason, generational talent works well in MLB. It doesn't work in the NFL. Then you should sit for a year or two and learn and just check it out. But I don't understand why the NFL, and then they end up giving these quarterbacks $240 million when they're not ready for it. It just seems like
I don't know about all that, Andre. Thanks for the call. There's definitely truth to some of what you're saying. That I do think that there are times that guys should sit. I think by the time that quarterbacks get paid $240 million, most of them are ready for it. Are there exceptions? Sure, but they're ultra talented exceptions that teams feel like they can't lose. Kyler Murray jumps to mind. Is Kyler more? And also, what is ready for $240 million mean? Do I think Kyler? You hear stuff about Kyler in terms of his study habits and all those kinds of things, but it's not like he's out there getting in trouble off the field because he's got $240 million. People are who they are. Money just accentuates it for better or for worse. But I do think, to the point of guys sitting, the reason it doesn't happen is simple: money. Like, it's hard to find the right balance of quarterback that makes it worth sitting. Like, why would you go sign someone? Or if you have someone that's good enough, why are you drafting a number one overall? Like, it kind of just comes down to resource allocation. Like, and also free markets, right? This is what happened to Jacoby Brissett last year. Jacoby Brissett came here because they were going to pay him $10 million. So he got his asking price, and he thought he was going to have a chance to compete. Didn't wind up getting that chance to compete, and he wasn't exactly thrilled about it. Like, sure, that $10 million was great. Was Jacoby a pro and a great teammate for Sam Howell? Hell yeah, he was. But, like, if I'm Jacoby Brissett this year, and I know that if I slip up, or if they think the other guy's ready no matter how I'm playing, or, you know, by next year I don't have a shot to be the starter, why would I go somewhere where, as opposed to, hey, like, I'm going to get maybe 2 years, 3 years to be a starter? Like, if I have a chance to really earn the job, or am I just going to sign up to be a placeholder? There's a price for that. And if you're going to pay the number 2 quarterback salary slot, how much money are you willing to invest in your quarterback room? Because you're going to have to pay a premium to get a guy to kind of take more to be less. And so I think conceptually it works. And the reason it's worked in Green Bay is because they anticipated the guy they had in-house retiring. That guy didn't, and it caused massive, like, weird issues at the end of both runs. They just happened to be good enough with the next guy that they don't really care. And, like, that's the best play, but you got to have one to do that. You know, when Green Bay acquired Brett Favre, that's not how Favre, if Favre had been down in Atlanta struggling. They acquire him, they get him, you know, with Mike Holmgren. Mike Holmgren's an incredible coach, takes him through his career, and then eventually he won't go away, but they drafted this Rodgers kid, and it was time to let him go, and Rodgers kid turned out to be pretty good until he was a Rodgers old man on ayahuasca, and then, you know, it was time to go to the Jordan Love kid. And now it's like, wow, hey, we seem to hit another home run. Good job, us. You got to get the first one right. There's plenty of other. Alex Smith obviously took the 1 year, but he was already an incumbent before Pat Mahomes took over. Josh Allen started as a rookie. Joe Burrow started as a rookie. There's different ways to go about it. I tend to think that quarterbacks situationally are going to sink or swim, whether they sit or, like, if they're in a good situation and they're capable of succeeding, they will, whether that's the first year is on the bench or on the field. If they're in a bad situation and or otherwise incapable of succeeding, like Johnny Manziel, then they're going to fail. They're going to sink. But if you can find the right combo, and I am someone who thinks that you need to get a veteran in here, whether that's with Sam Howell or instead of Sam Howell as your backup, I do think it's that. And then whether or not you start him, you know, I definitely don't think that, like, that part of the argument is flawed. I think that this is a crew that could use some more stuff. I will say, though, with Jayden Daniels, like, he's already 23, going on 24. So if it's Drake Maye and he's young, that makes more sense than a guy in Daniels or Bo Nix or Michael Penix, who are all significantly older. All right, let's go to Greg. Greg, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show on a Vibe Check Tuesday. Where are you at on the pursuit of a quarterback for the Commanders?
Oh, Craig, man, let me start by saying I love you. I love the show, even though you kicked my butt in fantasy this year. But you are stressing me out, man. Going back and forth, May and Daniels. Look, I'm not an expert, but from where I see it, Daniels is more experienced. He played 5 years in college. He's a more calm quarterback pocket. He obviously had the best season out of all quarterbacks this year, statistically. Even the tape kind of justifies it. I like the boy Drake Maye. I watched the Combine interview. He has great energy. You know, he reminds me like Phillip Rivers, but athletic. Just commands the room. Looks like everybody's going to love him. But he seems, I watched a couple All-22s, and Lord knows I'm not an expert, but he doesn't seem like he's quite ready to start yet. With the footwork, with the accuracy. Obviously, he played for a team, like you said, that wasn't too good. But guess what? He's coming to, the Washington football team, who's not going to be very, very, very good across the board. And I'm just worried we're going to be in a sink or swim situation, and I feel like we should swing for the fences, go for Daniels. I know everybody got the RG3 hangover. I feel them, right? We watched him take some terrible hits, and we don't want to see that happen to Daniels. But we got to get over that and go for the player who has the chance to be an MVP, because those are the quarterbacks that win you championships. I'll let you go.
All right, Greg, thanks for the call. I mean, I agree with a lot of what Greg said. Like, I think that Jayden has a chance to be really good. I think he layers balls really well. His deep ball is fantastic. He's got good arm strength. I was one of the throws in the Florida game that I loved was he takes a shot. And it's not like a vertical shot. It's really a horizontal shot. It's just so freaking far because the college hashes are so wide. He throws a hitch route to Malik Neighbors, who's wide left from the right hash. And you're like, that is a rope. Obviously, the running stuff is incredible. He's running away from guys in the SEC. Like, it's hella impressive what Jayden Daniels put on tape. But he had a pretty good O-line. He's like, I got a couple NFL offensive linemen in front of him. He had 2 first-rounders outside. And we realized, like, we knew Malik Neighbors was good. We knew Brian Thomas Jr. was good. Brian Thomas Jr. is like 230 pounds and ran a 4.33, 4.36 this weekend at the Combine. That's nuts. So, when we talk about a guy who's had to survive some circumstances, Drake Maye's got that on his resume. Caleb Williams also, by the way, has that on his resume. He's got better receivers, but his O-line was not good at USC. And Drake Maye was playing with no offensive line, or not a very good offensive line, one NFL receiver who showed up midway through the year, and is not as good as people thought he was. Like, he's a speed-only guy that after his Senior Bowl performance might not get drafted in the first 2 rounds in Tez Walker. And, that's what he was dealing with week in, week out. And so, yeah, he wasn't playing against SEC defenses like Jayden Daniels was, but he also wasn't playing with the dudes that Jayden Daniels was. So this is why it's complicated. It's not a simple formula of if they're put in the offensive line ranking. LSU, 9 out of 10. Okay, Drake Maye, 4 out of 10. Okay, arm strength. Blah, 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 this, that, and then you punch out a formula, and you're guaranteed success. This is not how it works. So, I know people are, we'll do this and never read the comments tomorrow, but people are like, how come you're changing your mind? And it's like, I'm not changing my mind. Or to the extent I am, my mind is being changed by more information, which if you listen to me, if you listen to Logan, if you listen to anybody worth listening to, this time of year when it comes to the direction teams are going to go and also their own personal opinions. If they don't tell you, I am continuing to gather more information and my mind may change, they're not being honest with you, or those are the people that are genuinely pushing an agenda. Because I hate when I get accused of that. Oh, you're pushing a Jayden. I've got accused of both, which is quite funny. Your Jayden Daniels agenda, your Drake Maye agenda. No, I'm just trying to figure out which dude's better. And the information has taken me in different directions at different times, depending on what information is available and who I'm talking to. Luckily enough for y'all, most of those conversations are happening into microphones. So you can hear them and you can go on the ride with me. 301-230-0980. It is the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube with crystal clear audio and everything. And we're taking more of your calls on a Vibe Check Tuesday next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube. Chat is popping off at youtube.com/@theteam980. Of course, you miss any portion of the show, you can check that out on YouTube on demand or the Hoffman Show podcast. Just check out by the end of each hour. So like as soon as we go to the 5 o'clock hour, Anthony will have the 4 o'clock hour up. So if you get a little bit behind, great way to catch up on demand. Or if you have to miss a show or you want to listen the next morning or whatever it is, you miss an interview that we tease, say, hey, we got a Minnesota Vikings insider on whether Kirk Cousins is going to re-sign up there. And if not, what are they going to do at quarterback, including potentially trading up to the number 2 pick with Washington Commanders? And you're like, that sounds interesting, but I have to go pick up my kid. So where can I check that out? Easy. You check the Hoffman Show podcast. Voila. There it is. All right, let's go back to the phones. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Noel in Chicago. Noel, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Craig. Good afternoon. Thanks for letting me call in. Always great to chat with you.
Thanks, buddy.
Initially, for a while, like I was really in on Jayden Daniels just because of the athleticism, his potential ceiling, and just his dazzling playmaking ability. But, in the last week, I've kind of brought myself a little bit back to earth, and I tried to think long-term for our franchise as far as what is best and what we can potentially become. I think Drake really is the long-term better prospect as far as the higher ceiling and just what he has the ability to become is just something that is a mystery that I think we need to find out. And, we're kind of like tempted to always pick the better prospect in hopes of winning sooner rather than later. We got to be patient. I think for the first time in a long time, I think we have to step back and just be patient and try to build this thing the right way. And obviously it starts with the quarterback. And regardless, we just got to support Drake Maye as much as we can, because I really think he's got a lot of potential despite all of his flaws. And hopefully we make that decision and pick him number 2. That's where I'm at. So.
Yeah, Noel, thanks for the call. Always appreciate it. Always smart stuff. And I think I'm glad Noel said something that I think gets twisted tremendously, which is I think that Drake Maye's ceiling is higher than Jayden Daniels. Now people are going to go, oh, that's a hot take, Craig. Is it? Is it? Think about the best quarterbacks in the league. They can move, they can run, but they're lethal from the pocket. The reason that Pat Mahomes is Pat Mahomes is not because Pat Mahomes can run around. Yeah, that raises his ceiling. But if Pat Mahomes was the run-around guy and he wasn't able to just dice you from the pocket and make the plays off schedule as a thrower that he makes, he's not Pat Mahomes. He's insert running quarterback who's not very good here. If Josh Allen was just a bulldozer and couldn't laser you from the pocket, he's a bit like he's Cam Newton after the shoulder surgery. Not a very good football player. I had a Cam Newton jersey as a kid. Like, I'm a big Cam guy. Cam, at his best, could bulldoze you and was one of the best, running backs in the league, who also was a 4,000-yard passer because he could beat you from the pocket. Then his shoulder got hurt, and he could do neither anymore. Couldn't run without getting hurt. Couldn't throw. Accuracy wasn't there. Just the shoulder went on him. Burrow, not the greatest runner, but can scramble, but kills you from the pocket. His willingness to do that, to throw down the field and do that stuff from the pocket is what makes him great. And so I think that when we think about quarterbacks, we get the ceiling and the floor wrong. Yes, Lamar's an MVP player, but Lamar won the MVP, not like the threat of what he does as a runner, one, is wholly unique. There's no one else in the league that can run like Lamar at the quarterback position. So he's a little bit of a special outlier. But even then, he can dice you from the pocket. And that is what has made his career sustainable. It's not just the running. Yeah, he runs, and when he does it better than anyone. But his willingness to sit back there and try to beat you from the pocket causes defenses to react to him in traditional ways, and then they get themselves out of rush lanes, and then he kills you. And so, yeah, where for Pat Mahomes, it could be an 8-yard scramble, it turns into a 30-yard run from Lamar. It starts with his ability to actually win from the pocket. And so with Jayden Daniels, his floor is high because you can do quarterback run stuff with him, and he will be able to run the football and get you first downs and do that kind of stuff. And when his first read is open, he will hit it on rhythm and in timing. And I was going back and forth with someone on YouTube yesterday about this. I had said, and I think it was on Kimes Pod, Daniels is more of a one read and tuck it thrower. And there isn't a lot of stuff of him on tape, relatively speaking. This is all relative. But relatively speaking, of him getting through multiple reads and a progression compared to a guy like Maye, compared to a guy like Caleb. And those guys are, getting through their progressions all the way, then having to run for their lives because nobody's open and their offensive lines aren't any good. But with Jayden, he's got a clean pocket, and Malik Neighbors is open all the time. Even when he's not open, he's open. So, why would you get to your second read? These progressions aren't designed to be gone through. They're designed to work. And so if you're Jayden Daniels and you drop back and you get to your first read and your first read's open, you throw it. And it looks really pretty. And his accuracy's good. And he'll put balls on back shoulders. And he'll throw guys open away from zone defenders. And he does a lot of really good stuff. But how much of that translates to the NFL? And can he do, when in the NFL, those are not going to be wide open all the time. What does he do? And there's not a lot of that on tape, relatively speaking. And so his success level in terms of ceiling will be determined on that. Meanwhile, Drake is someone who is more adept from the pocket, not as lethal of a runner in terms of big plays, but absolutely can scramble and scrambles to throw where he creates big plays off schedule with his arm. That's the kind of quarterback that succeeds in this league. And I know people make the Herbert comparison, and if he turns into Herbert, you'll be very happy you drafted him. In fact, you would argue that the whole reason Washington is in this situation in the first place is because they drafted Chase Young over Justin Herbert in 2020 in the first place, or back then. You're going to be really happy. And so, yeah, I would say if you're choosing between a running quarterback and someone who can beat you from the pocket, while mobility is a must, you still want the pocket guy. Because if you have to pick one or the other, the pocket's the one where and maybe that's not even the right way to phrase it. The right way to phrase it is this. If you're choosing between a runner who's got questionable pocket skills or a pocket guy who's got questionable running skills, the ceiling of the pocket guy is higher. And that's kind of the decision that we're making. And I think that's why a lot of us, even who like Jayden Daniels more to begin with, because the TV copy of the tape looked really pretty all the time, and Drake's looked like a bit of a mess, watch the All-22, get deeper into it, and go, oh, I understand it now. That's what translates to the league. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. That'll do for this Vibe Check Tuesday. Appreciate all of the calls.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.